The stunned silence in Lecture Dome Theta fractured into gasps and panicked clicks as the alien student staggered in. His environmental suit shredded, his greenish blood leaking from half a dozen gashes, and something that looked like poisonous moss still writhing across his helmet. Instructor Heloran Vax of the Kalari Dominion dropped his data slate. Medical. Dome Theta now. The alien student collapsed, convulsing. But not before he screamed. Humans live there. They thrive there. The orientation briefing had been so clear. Earth is currently classified as a Level 8 hazardous biological zone, colloquially, a death world. But to the assembled interspecies students of the prestigious Galactic Scholarium of Xenocultural Sciences, it was just a scary label. A curiosity. A fun badge to earn for their resume. After all, the field trip was sanctioned, supervised, perfectly safe. Controlled exposure, the humans had said. And they had smiled. Gods help them, they had smiled. There were 6 in the team. 4 aliens, 1 human liaison, and 1 mistake waiting to happen. S.H. Carr of the Silicari was the unofficial leader. A crystalline life form, intelligent and logical, he had petitioned for this field study personally. Yaira Quen, the feather-crested diplomat's daughter from Melnaxi Prime, was here on cultural credit. She had no intention of touching dirt, let alone surviving in it. Drolth the Veskar, a brute covered in armored scales, was here to test his strength against the wilds of Earth, and prove something to someone back home. And then there was Nilo, the human. Young, awkward, always with one boot untied and always chewing something, Nilo was their liaison, meaning glorified babysitter. He wore no armor, carried no weapon, and seemed to think everything was hilarious. Drolf had mocked him on day 1. He stopped on day 2. Their first stop had been the Amazon Biocontainment Preserve. A thin sliver of what remained after centuries of climate taming, cordoned off by automated drones and triple redundancy plasma fencing. The aliens had descended with sterilized breathers, hazard suits, and enough anti-pathogenic injections to kill a small mammal. Nilo stepped out in cargo pants, a ratty tank top, and scratched his chest. "Ah, you smell that? That's 80% oxygen and 20% everything that wants to kill you." The Silicari didn't laugh. They couldn't. But Drolf did. Until the vines moved. The trees weren't the worst part. It was the silence. "Where are the predators?" S.H. Carr had asked. The documentaries claimed apex hunting species. Nilo had tilted his head. "Oh, they're there. Watching. Learning your gait, your weaknesses. Earth predators don't rush in. They wait." Yaira scoffed. "They fear us." "No," Nilo said, smiling slightly. "They're curious." Then the jungle screamed. Not metaphorically. Not some animal call mistaken for emotion. The entire forest screamed, a deafening, teeth-rattling vibration as billions of microflora released defensive spores in response to an errant thermic shift. S.H. Carr reeled as his crystalline outer shell began etching itself from acid contact. The moss under Droltha's feet bit him. Yaira collapsed, paralyzed by scent-triggered neural feedback from a passing flower's pheromones. And Nilo slapped his own neck, grimaced and muttered, "Damn mozzies are getting bolder." Back in the dome, Heloran Vax reviewed the footage with trembling hands. One day into the Earth study, and one of his students was in critical condition, one was missing, and the others were locked in emergency quarantine, undergoing cellular realignment to remove thousands of unknown microscopic lifeforms that had attached to their bloodstreams like barnacles. And the human liaison? He was eating a banana, while sitting on top of a crocodile. The footage wasn't faked. The chair of the Scholarium insisted on an inquiry. And that's when the humans got involved. Fleet Liaison Commander Janessa Rain wasn't a scientist. She was military, and her presence on Earth's Education Oversight Council was entirely ceremonial. Until now. "You approved a Death World visitation?" she asked the dean. He sniffed. "With proper supervision." "By whom?" He blinked. "Nilo, A registered human guide. Rain stared. Nilo. Montresor. The dean nodded, confused. Yes. He seemed affable. Unthreatening. Janessa Rain sat down, hard. You sent that lunatic into the jungle with first-year students. Nilo Montresor wasn't unthreatening. He was a Deathworld survivalist, a third-generation Earth Corps ranger who could start a fire with 2 fingers and an attitude problem. He once walked across the Australian exclusion zone with a water bottle and a stick, then came back with 2 kangaroos and a sandwich. He wasn't unthreatening. He was just so human that aliens mistook him for weak. Until they saw him smile at a charging predator. 2 days later, S.H. Carr regained partial functionality. His crystalline voice stuttered from the restabilizer unit, but the words were clear. I did not understand. The term. Death World. Yaira was still comatose, her system detoxifying at the molecular level. Drulf. Missing. Last seen chasing a shape through the underbrush, roaring with challenge. Nilo had gone after him, with a backpack and a grin. He hasn't returned either. The inquiry escalated to the Galactic Council of Biological Hazards, where Earth was put under provisional lockdown. Humans protested. We told you, Rain said during testimony. We told you Earth wasn't for tourism. The Silicari ambassador demanded clarification. Rain leaned forward. Her voice was hard enough to bend metal. Earth is not a world of predators. Earth is a world of adaptation. You didn't get attacked by a creature. You got attacked by the entire ecosystem. Every organism on Earth, plant, animal, microbe, competes. And they've had millions of years to learn how. She paused. And we grew up in it. The dome fell silent again as the last recording played. Droltha's body cam footage. Heavy breathing. Panting. The jungle moving like it knew him. Shapes in the dark. Then the sudden rustle. Then silence. And a voice. Calm. Cheerful. Found him. Nilo. Alive. Droltha's bloodied form was draped over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Dumbass ran into a jaguar nest. Made friends, though. This one's named Carl. The camera turned. And the jaguar, sitting obediently next to Nilo, licked his hand. Back at the Galactic Scholarium, 6 species refiled their petitions to cancel Earth study programs permanently. Too dangerous. Too unpredictable. Too human. But not all of them. S.H. Carr, now fully recovered, made an announcement during the reopening seminar. I return to Earth. With permission. Not for study. For understanding. Yaira, still weak, whispered from her recovery bed. Me too. And then, quietly, unnoticed, applications flooded in. Students. Soldiers. Scientists. All wanting to understand how a species could survive a world that wants them dead, and still call it home. High Chancellor Virex of the Galactic Scholarium didn't flinch easily. He had negotiated ceasefires with war-born species, stood unblinking before the neural rage of the Kroll, and survived a face-to-face encounter with a sentient black hole ambassador. But right now, watching the medical readouts flicker red across 6 separate star systems, he felt the first cold grip of dread since his hatchling days. It's not a contagion in the biological sense, said Director Joel of Xenobiological Containment. It's behavioral, cognitive, philosophical. He tapped a screen. A dozen alien students stared blankly from quarantine cells, each repeating the same phrase over and over again. If humans can survive it, so can I. The fallout from the Earth excursion spread like a virus, but not through blood or spores. Through ideals. Footage of Nilo Montresor dragging Drolth out of a predator nest, bruised but grinning, had gone viral on the galactic net. Billions watched as the jaguar, Carl, apparently, followed him like a loyal hunting hound. Comment sections exploded. He tamed it. They didn't program the predator, he befriended it. Humans survive places our war machines won't even enter. Maybe Earth isn't the problem. Maybe it's us. And then came the copycats. 3 weeks after the incident, the Varnali twins, insectoid scholars from the neutral world Quircax, sued for independent visitation rights to Earth. They wanted to experience the raw crucible of human origin environments. A week later, a Lutheri war monk attempted a solo survival run through the Himalayas. He was found 3 days later, weeping beside a human child who had led him back to shelter using only a stuffed bear and a candy bar. He submitted a report titled, "What I Learned from the 5-Year-Old Who Saved Me." In response, the Galactic Council called an emergency summit. The humans were invited, this time, reluctantly, and with triple security. Fleet Liaison Commander Janessa Rain walked into the chamber dressed in field uniform. No formal robes. No ornamentation. Just the silent weight of reputation and scars earned in places no censor dared fly. She dropped a data slate on the council table. The title flashed across 100 screens. Death World Training Doctrine. Earth Origin Species. A Talvani delegate twitched. "You're institutionalizing this madness?" Rain smiled. "No. We're offering it." The room exploded. "You mean to militarize it? You want our children to die in jungles? This is cultural erosion by insanity. They'll emulate the humans. They'll become Deathworlders." Rain interrupted. "That's not a biological classification. It's a mindset. It's what happens when evolution stops babysitting you." Her voice dropped, iron-laced with quiet fury. "Your species spent 10,000 years building paradise domes. Mine spent it trying not to die screaming in the dark." Back on Earth, S.H. Carr stood at the edge of the Grand Abyss Rift. 1,000 meters straight down. Wind howling. Clouds churning below like a hungry sea. Nilo stood next to him, eating something wrapped in wax paper. "Question," S.H. Carr said, clicking nervously. "If I slip, what is the probability of survival?" Nilo took a bite. "You." "Yes. 0. S.H. Carr blinked. "And you?" Nilo smirked. 2%. The Scholarium had authorized a second Earth excursion. Supervised. Monitored. Voluntary. The students who applied weren't forced. They weren't required. They chose to go. Because something about that jungle, that predator-ridden wilderness, it spoke to something buried in every sentient being. The will to overcome. The will to adapt. The will to endure. But not all who returned were the same. Yaira Quen, once pampered, now trained in emergency extraction drills. Her feathers had dulled with dirt and wind, but her posture had straightened. She no longer flinched from the wilds. She walked into them. Drolf, now partially cybernetic after nerve regrowth treatments, no longer barked about superiority. He listened. He trained in silence, learning discipline, a word previously foreign to him. And S.H. Carr? He started joking. Crystalline lifeforms don't evolve humor naturally. It took humanity. But the change wasn't just personal. Scholars began noticing resilience markers in the returned students. Faster neural response. Elevated stress tolerance. Adaptive thinking under fire. Some even showed cross-species empathy improvements. It was as if surviving Earth hadn't just scarred them. It had awakened them. The tipping point came when Station Lasara, a research facility on the edge of wild space, was attacked by an unknown hostile force. The defense grid failed. Automated systems shut down. And the only people still operational were the mixed species study group that had returned from Earth 2 months prior. They didn't freeze. They didn't panic. They acted. Like humans. When asked afterward how they knew what to do, one of the survivors, a quiet sorry empath, simply said, "We remembered Nilo's first lesson. Don't wait for help. Be the help." Not everyone welcomed the change. The Cherokee Coalition declared the Earth program cultural contamination and banned human training protocols within its borders. Their youth started wearing human-style boots anyway. The Drektosh High Warlord outlawed Terran combat drills in his fleets. His elite soldiers began conducting unauthorized night simulations based on recovered Earth footage. The more they tried to suppress it, the more the myth grew. If a human can survive it, so can I. Back at the Scholarium, Chancellor Virex received a private transmission. Untraceable. Encrypted. A single line of text. Phase 2 is live. He paled. Not because he didn't expect it, but because he did. Inside a converted human freighter orbiting Mars, Nilo Montresor paced a worn steel floor. Behind him stood 30 alien students, graduates of Earth's first Death World acclimation program. They were ready. Hardened. Sharpened like blades that had bled to earn their edge. Nilo looked up. The holomap shifted to display 6 alien worlds. Earth ain't unique, he said. We just adapted first. Now it's your turn. Avarnoli clicked its mandibles. But what's our objective? Nilo grinned. Simple. He tapped the map. We visit your death worlds next. Some protested. Some warned. Some begged the humans to stop spreading the madness. But they didn't understand. It wasn't madness. It was freedom. The freedom to grow in fire. To laugh in the jaws of death. To become something the galaxy feared not because of weapons or ships, but because of what they could endure and still keep going. Fleet Liaison Commander Janessa Rain didn't blink. Her adjutant hesitated. Ma'am, it's called Operation Glass Cradle. The room went silent. Then cold. Janessa spoke like steel scraping against steel. They're going to try and sterilize Earth. It began with static. Earth's outer satellites dropped offline in rapid succession, 32 in the first hour. Ground-based tracking stations reported nothing. No heat blooms. No warp signatures. No approach vectors. The first warning came not from the defense grid, but from an old man in Alaska. He spotted the sky blinking wrong. He radioed his granddaughter. She posted it on the local net, which reached Redline, a civilian-run Terran threat monitor built by paranoid ex-Marines and retired tech junkies. Redline noticed too many coincidences. And that's when the alarms went off. The Dracothi didn't send fleets. That would have been expected. Predictable. Risky. Instead, they launched stealth kinetic rods, tungsten spears accelerated by magnetic slings, wrapped in grav-null fields to evade detection until terminal descent. No warnings. Just sudden, continent-breaking strikes. No negotiations. Just obliteration. The first rod hit the Pacific. The sea boiled. The second aimed for Johannesburg. Missed, barely, when an old Terran orbital minefield activated manually. Someone had kept the grid online. No official had authorized it. Just some guy named Dave. The third rod was intercepted mid-flight by a cargo freighter, piloted by a half-cybernetic Veskar student named Drolf, screaming old Terran war songs as he collided headfirst into the projectile, punching through it with brute mass before vaporizing in the atmosphere. Transmission cut out with his last words. Humanity taught me to die standing. The attack failed. Not because Earth's defense grid was perfect. It wasn't. Not because humanity saw it coming. They didn't. It failed because Earth is not protected by satellites or fleets or treaties. Earth is protected by Earthlings. And Earthlings don't break. In orbit, the Dracothi High Admiral Zurek Vaughn watched the operation collapse in disbelief. How? He demanded. How did they adapt so fast? An officer stammered. They had no intel. No warning. No fleet response. But another Dracothi, younger, paler, whispered. They didn't adapt. They were already ready. Below on Earth, Janessa Rain met with the Terran High Command. No response, the generals asked. She shook her head. No fleet launches. No reprisals. No retaliation. Confused silence. Then what will we do? One asked. Janessa didn't answer. Instead, she sent a transmission. Encrypted. Untraceable. It contained coordinates. 6 alien worlds. A mission directive. And a signature. Nilo Montresor. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, those same coordinates began to experience incidents. On the tundras of Valshera, a team of Silicari students established a forward base, with no atmospheric shelter, surviving purely by methods they learned in Antarctica. On Dracothi Mining Colony 7B, local command reported an unknown psychological contagion. Troopers were refusing to retreat from dangerous zones, quoting Terran survival proverbs like Holy Scripture. And on the jungle moon of Zixa 4, a youth unit made up entirely of Melnaxi nobles was found alive and thriving without shelter for 9 days. Their leader? Yaira Quen. Earth didn't retaliate, whispered the Dracothi admiral. They infected us. In the depths of Terran's sub-level red, a sealed briefing room lit up. Inside stood 12 beings, 6 human, 6 alien, each marked with the scars of survival. Each with files thicker than war criminals. They were called the First Death World class. Behind them, Nilo grinned. All right, he said, cracking his knuckles. Time to teach the galaxy what humanity really means. But the galaxy wasn't done fighting back. Operation Glass Cradle had failed. So they launched Operation Silence Protocol. A campaign not of war, but of erasure. Any media referencing Earth's survival programs. Deleted. Any mentions of the Death World doctrine. Scrubbed. Students who trained with humans were labeled radicals. Subversives. Contaminated. But it was too late. The stories had spread. The footage was archived. And worst of all, hope had taken root. Aboard a drifting Scholarium vessel in the ruins of the Tarsal Belt, a young Krolari engineer stood atop a failing reactor. The ship was going down. No way out. Where's the evac team? Someone screamed. The engineer pulled out an old, cracked Terran device. A music player. He pressed play. A song blared across the ship. Musical note. This is ground control to Major Tom. Musical note. He smiled. They taught us one thing. We don't quit. And he dove into the flames to fix the core. We are not here to win. Janessa Rain stood at the edge of Earth's last orbital bastion, Skywall, its armor plating blackened from kinetic strikes, its defense cannons running red-hot. Beyond it loomed the full might of the Dracothi Armada. Thousands of warships. Titans. Singularity-class annihilators. A fleet assembled not to fight Earth's military, but to erase the very idea of Earth from the galactic mind. Janessa's voice echoed through the war room as calmly as if she were ordering lunch. We are here to outlive them. Down on the surface, humanity did not panic. They did not evacuate. They trained. Every city became a bunker. Every citizen became a responder. Every child knew 3 escape routes, 2 fallback zones, and how to treat plasma burns with duct tape and sugar paste. But the real miracle wasn't the humans. It was the aliens who stood with them. On the volcanic plains of New Zealand's South Island, S.H. Carr led a team of Silicari engineers to reforge old geothermal arrays into EMP weapons. They forged me in acid storms, he said. Earth polished me. In the flooded ruins of Jakarta, Yaira Quen directed evac protocols with the precision of a seasoned tactician. No throne teaches like drowning, she whispered. But humans do. And orbiting above it all, Nilo Montresor stood aboard a retrofitted mining vessel called the Mudblood, staring down a dreadnought 1,000 times its size. He had one missile. And a plan. The Dracothi fleet descended. But not to conquer. To sterilize. They broadcast their terms on every frequency. Surrender. Submit. And we will spare the next generation. Humanity replied with a single image. A campfire surrounded by children, Terran, alien, even insectoid, laughing as someone grilled synthetic marshmallows. And beneath it, "You're too late. The next generation is already ours." The first orbital strike hit Europe. EMP pulses rippled. Satellites fell. Cities flickered. Chaos bloomed. And then the humans switched on the fallback grid. Hand-cranked batteries. Optical comms. Morse code. Systems the galaxy hadn't used in millennia. Systems too primitive for Dracothi tech to even detect. And somehow, they worked. The fleet had come to destroy civilization. But humans had trained for the end of civilization their whole lives. Meanwhile, deep inside Skywall's vault, Janessa activated the final protocol. The Torch. A digital payload, not a weapon, not a virus, but a message. It contained everything Earth had ever taught. How to survive in pain. How to resist despair. How to adapt faster than fear. And how to never, ever stop fighting. She uploaded it to an ancient beacon buried beneath Antarctica. The same beacon first used to signal humanity's entry into the Galactic Council. Now it was sending a new signal. And every species that had trained on Earth, that had walked its wilds, that had changed because of it, heard the call. And answered. At the moment the Dracothi launched their final annihilation wave, 12 planets lit up. Not with weapons. With rebellion. In every Dracothi colony, sleeper cells activated. Not soldiers. Students. Graduates of the Deathworld Doctrine. They turned off gravity in command rooms. They rerouted engine cores into meltdown. They sabotaged control networks using paperclips and chewing gum. And on one frontier world, a child born to a Dracothi and Melnaxi hybrid stood in front of a battalion and said, "I was born on Earth. You'll have to go through me." The fleet fractured. Not because they were losing power, but because they were losing faith. In their orders. In their superiority. In their fear. Because fear no longer belonged to the humans. It belonged to those who realized. Humanity had not infected the galaxy with death. They had infected it with resilience. In a final act of desperation, Admiral Zurich Vaughn initiated the Eclipse Protocol, a self-detonation of their core dreadnoughts in low orbit, a planetary-scale suicide meant to render Earth uninhabitable for 10,000 years. Nilo intercepted the command chain with a stolen encryption shard. His voice broadcast on all frequencies. "I wouldn't." Zurek sneered. "You don't scare me." Nilo leaned in, grinning. "Oh, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just reminding you. You're not the only one with a glass cradle." He flipped a switch. 6 Terran-built sleeper satellites activated around the Dracothi homeworld. And for the first time in their history, the Dracothi surrendered. They called it the Silence Collapse. The day the Dracothi fell. Not to bombs. Not to ships. But to students. To campfire legends. To hope. Weeks later, Galactic Scholarium Memorial Dome, Earth. A monument now stands in the cratered plains where the first rod was meant to land. It's not a statue. It's a mirror. Etched with names. All species. All ages. And at the base. This is what a death world raised. In the aftermath, the galaxy did not rebuild as it had been. It didn't want to. Entire academic programs shifted. Deathworld doctrine became a formal discipline. The term Deathworlder was no longer derogatory. It was a badge. And humanity? They went quiet for a while. Not out of weakness, but because their work was done. They had changed the galaxy. And the galaxy would never be the same. Final scene. A lone human child walks through the halls of the Galactic Scholarium. She's maybe 12. Behind her trails a nervous herd of alien younglings. Different worlds. Different biologies. All looking to her. One of them speaks up. "Is it true? You humans laugh during storms." The girl turns. Smiles. "No. We laugh at them."